It is another edition of the On the Mic podcast. And as we move on from Bellator 298, huge fight week there. Thanks to Bellator for having me alongside with MyMMAnews.com. But while you're in town for any fight week, you also get an opportunity to meet some great people. I had that opportunity, and I guess thanks to a fire alarm. Otherwise, I would have never ran out of the building at the same time. So thank you, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because my guest today is a man who I had the opportunity to meet. If you see, hear, or smell Proper 12, he's probably not that far away. If you see badass fighters like Brennan Ward or James Gallagher, he's probably not that far behind. He is the one and only Sean Shamrock. Sir, how are you?
After that introduction, man, I'm pretty fucking good, brother. How are you?
Well, it goes downhill after that. It goes downhill after that. It's just the
Yeah.
intro and everything else. But
Yeah, dude, I forgot about that fire alarm until you just said that. Like the funniest thing, right? So I was like, ah, fuck this fire alarm. But my boy Jay was like, no, dude, we're gonna go outside. So I was like, all right. But like I come out and Fedor is standing like he's a floor below us, and he's just standing there stoic as the fire alarm was going off. And it was like the most perfect image ever. Like people are fleeing, and Fedor's just like fucking rock solid, alarms going off. I was like, oh, this is everything right now.
dude, he's the best. Every once in a while you can get a head nod out of Fedor or something, right? He's never gonna come up, give you a big hug and a smile. But I remember he was at the elevator as I was walking through the lobby, and I just gave him a little head nod, and he just stared into the abyss, and I was like, oh, "That's Fedor."
He's on that post-career supplement cycle, dude. Fuck, dude. He was a monster.
He's pretty big, and it was a big night at Bellator 298. I know it did not go according to plan for Brennan Ward and Co. But in the immediate aftermath, having been in Brennan's corner, obviously when you leave the cage, obviously he's very pissed off. I understand that, but once you get back to the hotel, things kind of start to like calm down a bit. The dust starts to settle. What was that like?
I would say the dust is still kind of settling. We like it's just kind of a somber mood after something like that. I could tell it's more frustration than anything. Um, you know, Fight week is just it's a crazy experience the whole way. It's like a roller coaster of emotions, win, lose, or draw leading up to it. There's just so much going on. So it's like still now, like I just left the gym, and Jay, who's he's one of the owners of the gym with Brennan's dad, and he's the jits guy and the expert hand wrapper. He's like, you have your adrenaline dump yet? And I'm like, yeah, man. It's like it's just now kind of settling in. There's not really words to put together the mood like after something like that. I wouldn't even know how to articulate it in a way that people could understand, because the emotions are just so fucking high, dude. Like so like it's unrelatable to anything else I can tell you.
I have to commend, Brennan and obviously the entire team. He came in talking during media day on fight week about how when he first came back to Bellator, he wasn't sure. He was probably his plan was to work his job, stop working on fight week, and then do the fight and then go back to his job, and then the fights got bigger, the opportunities got greater. Sabaho Masi fight really kind of, I guess, took that plan to a different level. And here he is main eventing against the number one, former interim champion. You and I spoke in the hotel lobby after the fight, and I told you how I feel. I think you could bring it more into perspective for not only myself but for the viewers. Yeah, Brennan Ward is now back, and it would be a lot easier to say, "Oh, Brennan's back. He just got this big win over the former champion Logan Storley," but now he's pissed off. Now he's been given that main event feature again. He's been given that stage again, and now he's got an opportunity to not only right a wrong that had nothing to do with him, meaning the stoppage in that fight, which plenty of people thought it was an early stoppage, not taking anything away from Logan Storley. But now, Sean, if you can kind of put in perspective, like, okay, yeah, the dust still is partially still settling. We're all still very emotional. We're all still pissed off, but now the division has to deal with a pissed off Brennan Ward.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I can't speak to Brennan, like what his feelings are, but I can tell you that like I know that he can beat that kid. Like he his arm got fucked up when the first grappling exchange, he pulled a guillotine, and if you watch it, he had it deep. And I watched the fight back. Now it's on Showtime, and I've watched it back. And John McCarthy's like, oh, he's got it. Logan Storley's got to roll through, but Brennan just had to let it go because his arm popped. He's got to get the MRI and see what's what. But his left arm was basically, very compromised after that, especially when it came to grappling. Anything was squeezed. He could throw a punch, but if I know that hurt too. But the really just the thing is, like, came out of there like knowing that you could beat that guy. You know what I mean? I'm biased, right? Like I'm absolutely biased, but I believe that Brennan is really, truly one of the best welterweights in the world. This game, me and Brennan talked about it, right? This game is like a lot of luck. Like, guys just lose the wrong fights at the wrong time. Like Greg Rebello, who's like, I would say is Brennan's head coach, Greg's one of the best fucking heavyweights ever to come out of the Northeast. He just lost the wrong fights at the wrong time, and it just kind of derails where you're going because he's a motherfucker, dude. And Brennan, like, the same thing is like, his athleticism is just freakish. You should see him on a skateboard, on a surfboard, and I like, just athletically, he's a better athlete than 90% of the guys who fight MMA. There's a lot of guys who, like, I don't think Logan Storley is a great athlete. He's a great wrestler, and I believe that, like, the way it would have worked out with Brennan if he wasn't hurt is that his wrestling, like, you saw him, he stopped the first 2 takedowns, and we knew it was going to be a fight like that, up and down, and they're not taking, you would never discount Logan Storley's wrestling acumen. But I believe that Brennan's was good enough, if he was healthy, to stay on his feet more or to get back up. Jay was calling for an underhook the whole time on his left arm. Brennan's like, dude, I could hear you saying it. I just couldn't do it because of the injury. So it's just more of a frustration. Like, if you go out there and just get knocked the fuck out, dude, it's whatever. But to leave the cage with the number 1 guy in your division, knowing you're better than him and you didn't get the win, that's what I know that's eating at him. And the next person he wants that fight back. I personally don't know that. I don't think that Logan would fight him again. If you saw Logan's, like, celebration after he won, dude, to me, that was a celebration of relief. Like, he was happy to be the fuck out of there. I'm biased. It's whatever. I really, truly believe that.
Well, I mean, I'll just say for the viewers, obviously, Sean's part of Brennan's team. That's not the only reason why Sean's here today. We're going to talk about more than just Brennan Ward. But I understand where you're coming from, right? And it's not like, I came on here expecting to play, both sides of the fence. What it is basically, it is what it is. Plenty of people on social media thought it was an early stoppage.
Yeah.
People in the back thought it was an early stoppage. I thought it was an early stoppage. You can think, and I think this is where MMA media and podcasts and reporters, sometimes they kind of screw up, in my personal opinion. You can say one thing while also saying another thing, right? You can say congratulations to Logan Storley on the win, but it was also, in my opinion, I believe it was an early stoppage. Respect you for getting the job done for what that is worth, but I do believe it was an early stoppage. That's just where I stand. I feel a lot of people can't say one without the other. Or they try to say one without the other, excuse me. And I know you're Team Brennan Ward, so I don't need, like, you don't have to worry about being like, oh, I'm biased. I know that's why I wanted you here. I do want to kind of step away from the fight, though, because there's a lot of things. If I'm being honest, a couple of the fighters on the card that I've known personally from being on this show, and the fact that Brennan Ward was the headliner, are the reasons why I traveled 8.5 hours by car to be at that event. Anyone who follows my social media knows, I'm very open about my personal life and things that have happened in my life, people I've lost. And Brennan Ward's story clicks with me on a different level, in a way that you would say, oh, Tom Brady's my favorite football player, or LeBron James is my favorite basketball. Those stories don't resonate with most people. And I've said this countless times. I may have even said it to you on Fight Week. I know I said it to somebody else. You can, no matter if you've been through hell like Brennan Ward has, you can relate, whether it's you've gone through the same thing, or in your own personal life, you were at the top of the top, life brought you down, and you had to work your way back up. We can all, no matter what job, no matter what business, no matter what race, no matter what gender, we can all relate to that. But we can't relate and be like, yeah, I get what Tom Brady's going through. You were never a 6th-round pick out of Michigan. You were never the starting quarterback at the University of Michigan. So for fighting, the reason why, another big reason I want to have you on is we could talk about life and fighting and all of the above. So to talk about Brennan, when you talk about the road way less traveled, the road rarely traveled, because not many people can go through what he's gone through and come back this way. Being a part of his team, being a part of his corner, just if you had a moment to kind of reflect last week and know Brennan is Brennan and look back at his journey to look at where he is in 2023, main eventing in South Dakota against Logan Storley, against a former champion. Did all of that ever like hit you at any point during this past fight week?
Not really, only because I always expected it. Like I always knew that if he actually trained for fights, that he would be in that kind of position. I imagine his next fight will be a main event as well. You know, like I don't believe that he loses any stock with this. You know, Bellator knows he got hurt. Everyone knows it was a quick stoppage. But all that out the window, you know, it's still the number one guy in the division. He was piecing him up on the field. Like I don't think he loses any stock in this. He's the number 7 guy fighting the number 1 guy. Throw everything else out the window. He didn't get the win, but he looked good. He's, you know, he could go up in the rankings even still after this. You know, I believe his next fight will be you know, a main event again. And I just always expected it. Like what I can tell you is that mode that he's in, that the comeback, like all that stuff, to be someone around it is endlessly motivating. I take great inspiration from Brennan. You know, in 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, whenever it was, he was coming back to that first fight. He was like, yo, fucking, we got to get some rounds in, you know? And I'm like, I had been going through some stuff in my life where I was like kind of in like a bad place, you know, and I was like really out of shape. And like, I was like, fuck, all right, well, it's time to hit the gym, man. And like, so I can be at least useful, you know, because I wasn't. And it's just been a grind, like, coming back with him, man. And it's I say a grind, like I've been on my own grind, but it's been inspired by his story, so to say. And, you know, on the one hand, like, I know he's always happy to talk about it and he's happy to be an inspiration for people. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for his skills. That story takes such a precedence. Like after the Sabah Hamasi fight, to me, that's a big fucking win. That guy's tough. That guy was scary, you know, and like, you know, he went on Ariel Helwani and never talked about the fight. You know, it's just like about the comeback. And I guess, like you said, that is relatable. But I just feel like his skill set is not getting the shine that it does. You know, people say, oh, he's a brawler, because he does let loose and swing. But like, I think he's got maybe one of the best jabs in MMA ever. You know, he's all his last fights have been off of the jab, have been what's won it. His feints and movements. You know, he reads things off the break really well. I just think that his skills need to get a little bit more recognized than just this story for me. Only because I know how fucking hard he works. But he worked really hard at the other thing too. So I know he's happy to talk about it. But just being part of that, for me personally and selfishly, it's been great to be around because it's motivated me and it's got me back to where I needed to be. But to see him in that position, it doesn't surprise me. Like, you know, when the times get tough and, you know, we're in camp and I'm, you know, like, bro, imagine 3 years ago, would you be here? But like in that moment in the locker room, it's not like this surreal thing anymore. Like it just felt right. Like, yeah, this is where you're supposed to be, bro. Like this is where the fuck you're supposed to be.
And I love that because I asked him kind of about it. I asked him if something on fight week. I asked him if something clicked in the Sabah Hamasi fight. Like if something awoken in him to let him know, like, yo, I'm here, I'm back. And I love that you mentioned that because about his skill set, because I will tell you, I won't mention any names. I respect the people I spent my week around. I will tell you a lot of people were siding on Brennan Ward's side for this fight. And it's nothing against Logan Storley. But when you have a guy facing the number 1 guy who at one point was like, I'm coming back and I'm just ready to fight. And Brennan will tell you, because he's told all of us, and I'm sure he's told you a million times, he's coming to fight. And that's something I love that James Gallagher said also during his post-fight. He said, I came to win. I didn't come to fight, because normally I come to fight. What you know, every single time Brennan Ward steps into a cage, a gym, anything, he's coming to fight. and that is the number one. And his skill set is that of a full mixed martial artist. But he did say something that I wanted your opinion on. He did say that maybe down the line, when MMA is kind of on the wayside, that he may look into a boxing career. Because as he said about 100 times, he said, I could box. He said, I can box. Would you like to see Brennan in the boxing ring?
Yeah, probably. I mean, he grew up he was I believe an amateur judo champion, and then, wrestling, but his dad owned the boxing gym, which is how me and Brennan got acquainted many years ago, just through like the boxing is where it's at. His dad, if he was born 10 years earlier, would have been like the UFC champion. He was just he's just the baddest dude that's ever lived. But yeah, off camera, I'll tell you about a fight that almost happened, man. I can't.
Okay.
There's definitely been some stuff, and then if you go back, things that are documented, the bare knuckle boxing, like the stuff's been lined up. In the right matchups, I definitely do like Brennan's hands in a boxing match, especially against another MMA fighter, like all day for sure. But yeah, I appreciate that you recognize that. And I know a lot of people, because like if you just kind of do not MMA math, but if you look at like Logan's wrestling and say, let's just say it's a 10, right? And then you look at like Brennan's stand up and we'll call it a 9, right? But then you look at Brennan's wrestling and it's like a 7, where Logan's stand up's like a 2. Like it's just, I thought that Brennan's wrestling, think that Brennan's wrestling is enough to offset Logan's, enough to get back up, enough to be around. The shape he was just in, he was unbelievable. The shape that Brennan was in for this fight. So 5 rounds would have been no problem knocking him out. And I just think that the stand up, the difference was just unbelievable. I thought Logan looked like an amateur on the feet. But
I will say this: I think you talked about the reaction from Logan following the fight. I understand we're in South Dakota, we're in Logan's backyard, but as much as you didn't want to hear the crowd go crazy, from me being right there down on the floor, getting a video of it, there were a lot of faces like, thank God. It wasn't like, oh, we expected it. Like, because I think the crowd, whether they were fully just Team Storley or not, I think they realized who Brennan Ward was, not only coming into the fight, but who the hell he is now, after the round plus that they spent together. And I think a lot of people were like, okay, he got out of there, but obviously the injury and the early stoppage, it's not ideal, but and I think the crowd recognized that.
So can I tell you that I loved the crowd? I thought they were awesome. And we had talked about that leading up to it. It was like, we had hoped that they would be vicious like that. The boos were so loud in that arena, but like we wanted that, as opposed to the people who were just like, oh, good sportsmanship. You're like, nah, fuck that. Like we wanted to go into, because we're normally on the opposite end at Mohegan Sun very often, right? Where it's the same kind of thing, where it's like a hometown event, and you get people out who may have no idea who the other guy is, but they're going to cheer for the local guy, which I'm sure a lot of those people had no idea who Logan was, but they knew, like, oh, this is the hometown guy. But then when that package comes up and they just show Brennan taking people's heads off for 5 minutes, like they're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? And then most people have no idea what they're looking at when they watch a fight, but if they watched the stand up, they knew, like, oh shit, Logan has to get this to the ground. Like if you've never seen a fight before in your life, but this guy doesn't want to be standing here with this guy. So yeah, I really do think it was a reaction of relief, which is not like a bad thing, dude. Like I'm sure every fighter has been there. Like you're like, oh, I'm relieved this is done. But I just don't really, my point in that was, I don't know if Logan would fight Brennan again. I really don't. I think he was happy to get out of there. I think he knew that there was an injury, that was floating around the hotel. People were talking about it before the fight anyway. I think he knew. I think he was happy to get out of there. And all the respect to him, like he's a stud. There's no doubt about it. It's just like one of those things where it's gonna kind of eat at you. I know Brennan wants that fight really bad. He really, really wants that fight. But when you talk about Brennan coming to fight, I'll tell you what, man, there's a reason that, he ended up being ranked number 7 because they pulled Page off the rankings or whatever. He was number 8. There's a reason number 8 is fighting number 1. There's a lot of guys in the middle that said, no, bro, I promise you that, man. There's a reason that number 8 is fighting number 1. So respect to Logan, right? Because that's like a lose situation. He's taking a fight against a guy who is ranked so far below him. He doesn't really get anything by beating Brennan, other than like fighting a really dangerous guy for no reason. He's already number 1. He's not, So I respect Logan for that. And, like I said, there's a reason 8 is fighting 1. There's guys 7 through 2 who are like, no, thank you.
And I'm not blowing smoke or brown nosing here, but that makes me excited. And that's why, when we talked after the fight and to start this off, that's why I said, from a writing angle, from a reporter angle, chronicling the story now of a pissed off Brennan Ward looking to get back, like those are the stories now that I'm happy and excited to write about moving forward, at least following this event. Because where do you go if you're the division? Who now wants to take that fight? They didn't want to take it before.
Right.
Who wants to take it now?
If you're watching that fight, and are you thinking to yourself that you have wrestling as good as Logan Storley? Because if you don't, what are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's selfishly how I like to think about it.
I want to ask you this, and then I want to kind of focus on you. And there's obviously in the New England area, there's another promotion coming to town this weekend. So get your thoughts on at least the main event. But you could correct me if I'm wrong. You spend plenty of time with Brennan. I've only spent maybe 20 minutes, and that's in the media room with him. And following fight week, I can only think of one word, and that's resilience. And, I never play favoritism towards anyone, but I looked at how Bellator covered fight week, the packages they put together on Brennan, the stock they put in Brennan, the words that were said about him, everything. And, I am somebody who has clearly documented on social media. I lost my best friend to drugs she was 25 years old. And I know you said that's his story to tell, not so much yours, but whether it be an injury coming into a main event fight against the number 1 contender in the world, or down in his personal life, he continues to show up. Even if at times getting him to show up could have been the issue, I think the main word to describe Brennan Ward is resilient. And I was curious your thoughts on that and how you would describe him in one word.
Yeah, I would say that all comes from heart, which kind of lands in everything that he does. As a friend, dude, he's the best friend you could ever ask for. Like he's such, like I said earlier, an inspiration as a friend, but he's there, man. He's there for me, and he and I, can talk about shit that I can't always talk about with everyone else, because he's just such like that person for me in my life, and for his family, for his kids, for his girl. That Sabah fight, the first 2 minutes went really bad, and just the heart of him is what makes all of that, dude. Like, it's just he's got a real heart, dude. He is a fighter in every way, and I'm lucky to be a part of this journey.
Well, I'll tell you, the fight game is lucky to have you two as friends, and Brennan as a representation of what a true mixed martial artist is, both as a skill set and as a person. But it's all behind you. You're rocking it. It's how we met. Sean, we'll spice it up and make it a little bit more about you and not Brennan. And talk to me about your role with Proper 12. I told you off camera before this started, I think I still have every single bottle that I own. I may have thrown out one bottle, but outside of that, every time I get my hands on a Proper 12 bottle, it stays in the house once it's empty.
Have you had the apple yet?
I've had the apple, but I haven't had the apple bottle yet. A couple of the places I frequent, and trust me, Sean, you're gonna see a different side of me, right? Because you saw the professional reporter side. Listen, this little short guy, he likes to throw down sometimes, and I'm gonna have to make some public pleas here with you about some of my sports bars who don't carry your product, but we'll get into that.
Where are you at again in Detroit?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's
northwest suburbs of Chicago. So about 20 minutes.
That's right. That's right. 'Cause I was supposed to go to Chicago for a Proper 12 event in like 2 weeks, but they pushed it back to October. But I'll definitely make sure you're in there. It's a really cool event.
Yeah, I was there for the Connor St. Patrick's Day
Yeah.
a few years ago. That was incredible. But talk to me how you got started with Proper.
So I came from the nightclub and bar business. I owned spots and ran spots, and as a MMA guy, as a fan, a Connor fan, I'd gotten to meet Connor a few times, both in Ireland and in Boston actually, and it was always cool. And when Proper 12 came out, I was just like, yo, fuck yeah, I'm in on this. So like my club that I had for years, I threw Jameson out and was just like balls deep in Proper 12. And then this position became available, and it was actually, there was a competition online, right, where you had to do videos and shit like that, and just kind of get through. And long story short, I beat out over 3,000 people for the job, and it wasn't because I already knew Connor or anything like that. They actually kind of removed all that. It was an outside agency who was running the competition. So I just know the product. I love the product. And then, I've got this position where I'm the ambassador for the United States. So basically they send me to events that, need a figurehead of some kind, where Connor can't go or isn't going to be able to make it. Or sometimes with Connor, like me and Connor, we did the Apple launch together in New York. But like, I was in New Orleans a week ago, and there was an event there that I hosted, and we gave a donation. I do a lot of donations, so we gave like 30,000 to the fire department in New Orleans. We gave 100,000 to the fire department in Savannah. I was able to get 10,000 for my hometown fire department here in New London, Connecticut. So they use me to, I'll present checks or I'll do media. I did a TV show with Connor. They'll have me do some podcasts, things like that, where we did a series of advertisements that roll out. They're on the Proper 12 page. Basically, like I hate like saying this word, but I'm basically the influencer for Proper 12 who's not Connor. Like I'm the US guy, and they're just really starting to build that up and roll that out now. Which sounds really stupid to say, and like really like full, like I'm not. That's the best way to describe it, is they want me to be the brand influencer for the United States, a face to the brand for America, and something that's, just another path other than Connor.
Well, I will say this to you, and I'm not saying this because you're on my podcast, but I will say two things to you. One, you ever needed a spot to come on and promote anything, you have a lifelong invite from just the way you were cordial and respectful towards me. So any way that this show can help you out, you've got a spot here.
People watching should know we only met because you were wearing a Proper 12 shirt.
Yeah. So the story is how the fire alarm went off in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I had just sat down in the lobby, and I had told one of the other media members there, I said, we're not really doing any media events right now. I said, but I have a Proper 12 shirt on, and like, I don't know. I don't want to look too one-sided and like unprofessional, whatever. He's like, dude, you're just lounging. Like, who cares? So I had my website hoodie on, the website I work for, My MMA News. I had that on, but it was hot in the lobby. So I take it off. Then the fire alarm starts going out, and then I exit the building, and we cross paths, and now here we are. So that's the only way we met. So it's not like, you had me in your back pocket, and I'm like, I got this podcast. Otherwise, you would have been on here since day one. I'll never forget. I'll tell a quick Proper story. I'll never forget the weekend it launched out by me. I want to say it was right around the Khabib Conor fight, but it was right around that same time that Brennan was doing stand-up here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that weekend, I think the weekend it dropped was the weekend he was here in Chicago. And I grabbed as many bottles for myself and for a buddy. He's like, buy me a case and then grab yourself a couple bottles. So I got him his case. I got myself a couple bottles. I took a first date to go see Brennan Schaub. And during Q&A, someone goes, have you had Connor's whiskey yet? And he's like, no. And so me sitting there off to the side, I'm like, I got you a bottle. He's like, what? So I ran out to the car right after the show, grabbed the bottle. And that was Brennan's first bottle of Proper 12. It was brought to him by me, and didn't get much of an interaction with him, but I gave him the bottle, and he took a picture with it.
That's cool. So, to sidetrack off, I've seen him in Boston, New York, and in Connecticut. I've gone to see him 3 times. I always liked the show. I say it's funny. He came out with a whiskey with a tiger on it too. His son's name is Tiger, but I was like, it's clear. It's clear what you're trying to do here, bro. But whatever.
I do want to ask you that. That was something because I want to have you kind of talk more about proper. But I do want to ask you about fighters kind of getting into this. Right? We see it. Conor's just blazing trails left and right for Irish fighters, then for fighters who want to come up through the rankings by not only being able to fight, but also being able to market and sell themselves, for fighters who like to talk trash. Conor's setting trails for everybody, including now being the fighter who got his own whiskey, got his own beer, he's got everything. And now you see all these other fighters. You just mentioned Brendan, or Masvidal has one. There's five. I think Aljamain Sterling's working on one now that he announced. When you look at what Proper 12 and Conor and the entire team has done, what kind of impact has Conor made in your eyes into the alcohol business and how fighters now want to get their hands on it and make their own whatever?
So it's a positive impact, right? I love seeing other guys do stuff, and I want everyone to make money. But the thing is, really, with Conor, it's so authentic, dude. It's just like if you were just gonna go to Ireland on fucking vacation, right? Like, oh, we're gonna do some touristy stuff. What am I gonna do? Maybe I'll go to the Jameson factory. I'll go to the Guinness factory. They're like some of the top destinations in Ireland. So like for an Irish fighter to be involved in Irish whiskey and Irish stout, it's very authentic, and I think that that's not when other guys do it. And it's, if someone can make money, I'm happy for them. I think he's done nothing but open doors for guys and show guys that, you can hustle. And, he used his platform in the UFC to get this stuff, but the UFC didn't do it for him, so I think it just shows guys if you use your platform, you can continue to make passive income. But I just think it's just different with Conor because it's very authentic. It just makes sense.
From a guy who's been in the bar and nightclub industry, from just strictly a taste and everything. I'm not saying alcohol connoisseur, but if you could break it down for people who are so hell-bent on Jameson, what is the major difference between the two?
It's smoother. It really is. Dude, I'm legally not permitted to bash other brands on camera. I do have feelings about certain things. What I can tell you is this is not my opinion. What bars have told me is that Jameson is inconsistent in its taste because they're so big. It's made different places, and you might get one bottle that tastes one way, one bottle tastes the other way. It's part of just being so big. Where we're smaller. We will finish this year as the #2 Irish whiskey brand in America, though. We've closed at #3 last year, but this year we've taken that shit. We'll definitely be #2. But yeah, I just think that the difference is, and the flavors are similar. Like I think that we're smooth, like smooth to the core with the apple and fast and smooth on the bottle on the Proper. I think the smoothness of it is the big difference. We're also coming in at a better price point than Jameson. And, I think that if you're a bar, nightclub, and you have a chance to work with a brand that's associated with a megastar like Conor McGregor, you should. We give back $5 from every case to first responders. I'm flying all over the country to give thousands and thousands of dollars. Like Jameson is not, no other brands are really doing that. I mean, some other brands I'm sure, but like Jameson's not, right? We are $5 from every case goes to first responders, over $4 million since the end of 2018 when this opened up, dude. Like if you're going to do something and you can be attached to a major, like, if any major celebrity who's like in the nightclub age, like Conor's not like George Clooney and Casamigos is a huge brand, but I don't know that like George Clooney is really the draw to the 20 somethings, as far as the brand for whatever reason is, and the tequila. But like, if you have someone who's popular to the 20 to 30 something range, and they go to your fucking club, well, you should do something with a brand that they know. I see it huge here, like huge, with college kids and college bars I work with. I'll show up and they'll be like, "Oh, we got Proper 12 in the house." Like, "Oh, Conor McGregor's whiskey." Like, people know it, so I think that also stands apart, is the value you're going to get in people who want to drink it because of Conor, because Connor's so good at sharing stuff. Like, if you're in a bar and you get a Proper 12 drink, if you post it and tag him enough, you'll get on his story. He shares shit, so especially if you're a bartender or a bar owner and you want to be on Connor's social media, you can get there by just posting this stuff all the time. It's just, there's a lot of things outside of the box that I think that Proper 12 stands away from. And again, it's all authentic. Conor talked about how, as a kid seeing 9/11 happen in America, and it just fucking moved him to his core, which is why we do the donation from the brand. Like, it's not a PR move. Like, we don't even advertise it. It's not like something that we're as big on as maybe we should have, letting people know, because it's not for that. It's the authenticity of partying like Conor McGregor, I think, is like the vibe of the brand. We're a fun brand. We don't take ourselves too seriously, where it's just like, yo, let's grab the big boy and get loose. It's
yes, I love it. And I commend you guys on all of that, especially the first responder thing, whether it was Conor or anybody else. I think, yes, Conor definitely got me towards Proper 12. And I'm going to ask you two more bar questions, and then we'll kind of shoot the shit for a little bit longer. I appreciate you making the time for me. But, whether it was Conor, no matter what it was, Conor definitely influenced me towards Proper. I'm not legally obligated to say anything about anything, so I can tell you that from where I stand, Proper is much smoother to me. I was never a Jameson guy, but then I was able to start mixing it. Once I started having Proper, I built up the taste that I could have Jameson if Proper wasn't available. And it's not also because I'm a St. Patrick's Day baby, but you don't have to be a genius to realize what Conor's doing. You have Forged Stout, which he's now, pushing hard. You have Proper and Proper Apple. And for years and years and decades, we've had Guinness and Jameson.
Right.
Here we go. And exactly what you said. Instead of saying, "Do you have Proper 12?" people are saying, "Oh, Conor McGregor's whiskey." Now, and like the fact that you could just say that and people are like, "Oh, yeah. Because some places you'll go, they don't even know they have it. Yeah. But then they have it. And I'll commend, like you said, I also commend Conor on, he'll go into places, point it out, and say, "Good luck to the restaurant and bar, thanks for carrying my stuff. Have a good one." Just showing face. Now people have another place to go. So with that being said, it sounds like it should be a home run grand slam shoe, and 150% of all places that do this should carry Proper 12. Sean, can you please tell everyone, if you have a sports bar, better yet, if you have a sports bar that shows fights, and I may be speaking from personal experience here, if your place shows fights, Proper 12 should be behind your bar.
Yeah, I think that, I could go on forever, but like, we stand heavy behind our brand. If you're showing the UFC, your people know Proper 12. It's also coming in, market to market, it's different, but it's cheaper than Jameson. Jameson just keeps having these massive price bumps, and it's just kind of put themselves at a point where it's not even make sense to pour it. And it's definitely not bang for its buck in my, it's priced at like a top shelf, like bottle price right now, which it's not, it's an entry level, just like us, we're an entry level, but yeah, I just think that you need to know, so many bars and nightclubs are not great at social media. You have to have an agency do it, but you have to have someone who's in-house, like who really has a pulse on what's happening in your venue. Because if you're not carrying Proper 12 because you just think Jameson's always been, we'll just carry Jameson, and you don't realize that you could, 1, save money, 2, be helping donate to first responders, and 3, have a brand that's resonating with your social media audience, you're missing the boat big time. Like, you're really you're missing the opportunity to get shares for your venue to be on the Proper 12 page, on Conor McGregor's page, like to really have your clients and your bartenders have a reason to push the brand because they know that they could get on the social media. But it's a fun brand. It's a brand that all those posters behind your head, if those all come out of Buffalo Wild Wings, they should know, like, this is the brand that these people who are watching this fight know. It's a lot of people in the bar industry are kind of behind the times, and they just think, oh, this has always been, so this is what it is, and it's not. You have to have faith in your venue, that your venue is stronger than any particular brand. You don't have to have Jameson for what, you know what I mean? Like, I promise you, I've got Jameson kicked out of lots of major venues here on the East Coast, and none of them are complaining about it.
Well, when you come into Chicago, me and you, I may have to bring you to a couple of spots. Definitely didn't get these from Buffalo Wild Wings, though. I kind of refuse to go to Vita. I have one specific bar. They know who they are. I have one specific bar that I watch all my fights at, and it feels like a home away from home. But Sean, I do want to ask you this, because when I have the bottles, I don't care. Everyone's taking shots. We're not pour. Like, I don't pour. We're just doing shots. So as someone who, as I told you before we started, I don't really drink at home. That's why I don't have more bottles. But that means when I do have bottles, I'm just ripping shots. And with that being said, I come to you as a man who knows the product, a man who knows the nightclub scene, the bar scene. What are give me your top 2, top 3 best drinks to make with proper, whether it be Proper 12 or Proper Apple? Because I know I've seen it on your Instagram.
Oh yeah. So just the classic with ginger, either one of them with ginger ale is easy, simple, and good. I personally don't like ginger beer, but the apple as a mule people love that cocktail. I just personally don't like ginger beer, so the mule is not for me. But the apple with a mule is a really a hit as a cocktail. My go-to though is lemonade. Again, either one, the regular or the apple with lemonade. But I have a drink that I did for a Proper 12 commercial. It's on their page. It's the apple with lemonade and honey, and it's killer. I call it the golden apple lemonade, and it's a drink. I was in a bar, and they needed help with their drink menu, so I was looking at like liquors they had, and they had Baron Jaeger, which is it's a honey liqueur, and it was there probably a billion years. No one is ever going to order it, so I was like, yo, let's try this in a lemonade with the apple, honey apple. It seems like it should go together, and boom, it hit. So now I just have people pumping it with just regular honey and apple lemonade. So that would be my go-to. It's just the regular ginger ale, the mule, which again, not for me, but many people do like it. Especially the ladies love the apple mule, and then the lemonade with honey. Those are my 3 go-tos.
I love it. Well, before I get you out of here, anything you want to promote, anything that's coming up, anything you want anyone to know about?
No, just ask you. Give me a follow on Instagram, Sean Shamrock. Follow Proper 12. We have a page for my adventures called Pour the Roar. Let's try to follow adventures. Me and Brennan are going to the UFC next weekend in Boston, so we'll post a lot of shit from there. Get some good content out. Come follow both of us and check it out.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there's anything in the works for UFC Boston this weekend.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time, Sean. Hope you had a good time. I know I had a good time.
I did, yeah. I love talking fights, man. I'm always down to just come talk some shit if there's events coming up and you need somebody, man. And as long as I can talk about Proper.
Yeah, of course. Who do you have in the main event of the UFC this weekend? Aljamain or Sean O'Malley?
Probably Aljamain. I'd like to see O'Malley win, but Aljamain he wins, dude. He gets it done. It's hard to bet against him.
Yeah, it should be a great fight. Well, Sean Shamrock on Instagram, Sean Shamrock on the other side of this Zoom interview. Sir, thank you so much for the time. Make sure to follow Sean on Instagram. Make sure to follow Proper 12. Make sure to follow everything that has to do with Sean and Proper 12. Sean, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you got it, man. Cheers.